Hello there. This is AD Robles, and you're listening to AD on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. All right. Today is the day we are going to be addressing this weird interaction, this weird moment between Canon Press, Doug Wilson, and Al Mohler. It all started on September 8th when Canon Press, on their Twitter page, proudly announced that they were going to be including content from Dr. Al Mohler on Canon Plus. They were going to drop some new content, and they were kind of announcing it, using it as a way to get you to sign up because, of course, you wouldn't want to miss the special Al Mohler content on Canon Plus. Now, I did not recognize the content and any of the names of the titles that they were promoting. But, I did have a very similar reaction to a lot of people. And so what I wanted to do in today's episode is I want to talk about my thoughts as it happened, my reaction to it. And I wanted to do that in a very kind of, authentic kind of way. Obviously, I can't time travel. So what I decided to do was talk about it while I was fishing. So I went out fishing this morning and I talked about sort of my initial reactions to what Canon Press had announced. And then I want to talk about something else towards the end, because I think that this is actually the actual Al Mohler content in itself is almost like not even the most interesting thing about this interaction. There's something that's much more interesting, so I want to get to that. So here's the first part, and if you have the opportunity to watch it on video versus podcast, go ahead and watch it on video, because I'm fishing while I'm doing this, so some of the stuff you won't quite understand as I'm saying it. But in any case, I'll see you back in the studio after the first, 10 minutes or so. God bless. It's kind of a dreary day today. The fishing has been all right. I've caught 5 or 6 pretty small ones for the river. I've been catching some big fish here, and I haven't gotten a single big one to bite. I did have a funny thing happen to me. A fish jumped right at me, and I almost fell into the water because of it. And so I'll probably, if the video is good on that, I'll share that video. But I wanted to start this week's podcast off just with my kind of off-the-cuff reflections of what I thought when I saw that that Canon Press was excited to announce that they were going to be including Al Mohler content on their Canon Plus app. Because I have a feeling that my reaction when I first saw that was very similar to most of you guys. I couldn't understand why they were doing it. And the thing is, I think a lot of people, kind of reacted to it on Twitter pretty negatively. And the overwhelming response that I saw were people saying, listen, Al's stuff has been very helpful in the past. And, obviously I'm not saying I'm not going to disagree with him where he's wrong. And that's great. I'm not really against that. If you want to read, Al Mohler stuff, but, you chew the meat, spit out the bones. That's on you. That's totally fine. But this struck me as different. This wasn't like you're reading content from someone that, has gone woke and, you're getting the benefit from it, but spitting out the bones. Everyone knows that you can do that. This was more celebratory, like, oh, great, we have Al Mohler content now. And that's a lot different, in my opinion. And they were trying to use it as almost a way to get you to buy the app. Like, Al Mohler's content is so helpful that you should get this app so you have access to this exclusive, that's what it seemed like, this exclusive content. And to me, that's very different. And the thing is, the other thing that I wanted to say is, look, it's okay to, if you think Al Mohler is very helpful and you want to celebrate his helpful content, that's fine. But in this context, in this climate, really? Because here's the thing, I could see a similar objection being made. You include, oh, here we go, we got one. Yeah, that's a bite. Gotta make sure to come up to dab me. Again, it's a small fish, but but he bit the, oh, it's big. This is the biggest one of the day. I mean, it's not big. To give you an idea of how my day's been going, this is the biggest fish of the day probably, and it's not big at all. So let's get this guy off the, oh my gosh, he's gonna hook me. He's gonna hook me, that's for sure. I gotta pay attention here. I don't want to get hooked. Got him. All right. He's feisty, but small. So here we go. This is the probably tied for the biggest fish of the day. Again, this is not a big fish, but hold on a second here. Get a picture of this. I like to take pictures of all my fish because I log them just to see like proper conditions and stuff like that. That guy's a little too small to keep. I could have, you could eat a fish like that, but really not that much meat on him. But anyway, as I untangle this mess here, let me catch up to where I was. So I could see a similar objection being laid out for RL Dabney, right? Let's just say, I don't know if Dabney's stuff is on Canon Plus, but let's just say it was, right? And they made an announcement that they're so excited they're going to be, including Dabney's content. Now, Dabney is very helpful, way more helpful than Mohler, I would say. But, he also had some racist beliefs. I could see a similar objection being made for Dabney. But here's the difference, though. Here's the difference. Dabney, let me just check my line here. All right, Dabney is long dead. He's not actually subverting the church anymore. I mean, people like his stuff, but people are also aware of his deficiencies. It's not like anybody hides them. This is something that it's well understood. He's not hurting the church anymore. He's done. Mohler is in the middle of his subversive, plans. He's still doing it, and many people are still, kind of duped by some of the stuff Mohler has said, and then he's undone them. He's like, and people call him the weather vane for a reason. He's like he's following the winds of whatever people are, whatever people are into and stuff like that. However he thinks he can have power, he starts to adjust his doctrine accordingly. And because of that fact, because he's currently active and he's currently still subverting the church in many ways, regardless of how helpful this particular content is, I think it's a mistake to throw your weight behind Al. And the thing is, it's not like Canon really disagrees with me that Al's subverting the church. I mean, even if you look at the responses that people gave to defend the act, they acknowledge that he's part of this woke virus, at least to some degree. And so, I don't know, that I'm not going to say it's sinful to do that because, obviously, that's a judgment call. I mean, if you think Al is a complete capital H heretic, then of course it would be sinful to platform him positively. But I don't think that Canon and the people in Moscow really think that way, because and this is actually something I want to talk about, and I'll talk about it after I'm done fishing here back in the studio. But part of their whole theology, and this is, I think, a good thing in their theology. They've got a pretty big tent. And so they're going to have a lot of grace for people like Al Mohler. And I think that there's definitely a good part of that. But also, I think this is a mistake. I mean, if you read the Times, I mean, these people they're in our walls and they're subverting people, and they're experts at our language. They're experts at the language of evangelicalism. They're experts at the way that evangelicals think and speak. And because of that, they're super, super dangerous. So I think it's a mistake. I'm not going to say it rises to the level of sin necessarily, because I don't think that's the case. But it's a mistake to platform Al in this way. And I think that when you see how we're going to talk about his response as well. Al knows what time it is, right? Al knows what time it is, and he needs to subvert certain people. That's what he's doing. Just to be honest, he's subverting people. And he knows that if he's associated with Moscow, that hurts his power, that hurts his perception, and so he knows what time it is. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think the people at Canon are naive. I think they really. Here's what I think. A lot of people are saying, is it a troll? Is it like a deep cover troll or whatever? And I don't think it is. I think that these guys, they kind of knew what the reaction would be. So maybe in that sense, it's kind of a troll. But I think that they really do like this content, which is interesting because they were successful at making me interested in what Al Mohler said in this content. So normally if Al Mohler had put out a book or a speech, like I wouldn't really care to really check it out, but I am going to check these out. And so maybe these are like super helpful. Maybe these will help me understand the times better. I don't know. And if that's the case, then that's fine. So they were successful at getting more people exposure to it. I don't know, but I still think it's a mistake. I still think it's a mistake. And so we're going to talk more about this after I'm done fishing. I'll get back to the studio and we'll go into it a little bit more in depth. But that's my kind of my raw reaction, right? I think it's a mistake. I don't think it's a sin. I wouldn't have done it. And I think, you know, with the troll aspect to it, you know, they do the discount code Mohler. I don't think that was the plan from the beginning. I think that was just them making the best of it, you know, because Al responded so negatively, and the way that they respond to negative, you know, negative press or negative energy, they make light of it. They use it to their advantage. I think that's a good thing. I'm glad they did that. But I don't think that was the plan all along. I saw somebody say that he thinks that Canon was trying to make Al choose a side. And I don't think that's what it was either. I mean, if you didn't know Al was going to choose the side he chose, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know what to tell you, because that should be very obvious. But in any case, thanks for listening to this fishing side of the podcast. And now we're going to get back to the studio and go in a little bit more depth. God bless you. I hope you found this part of it helpful. I'm going to get back to fishing.
Yeah. So that's that was kind of my initial reaction, and I did take some time to think about it because I just wanted to make sure I was thinking through what I thought well, and I'm still basically where I was right away. I mean, I maybe nuanced it a little bit, but yeah, it was just such a weird interaction all in all. And so what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk about sort of what happened after, right? Because the Canon Press, you know, announcing this, it didn't make anybody happy. I found that to be very interesting. And that was one reason why I think a lot of people thought it was maybe a troll, because, you know, people that like Doug Wilson and the people from Moscow, you know, the CRAC folks and things like that, very few of them were happy about this announcement, right? And I think that was very predictable. Like, you know, I don't think that they didn't know that a lot of their fans and their subscribers would be like, Al Mohler, really? Like, I think they knew that, right? But they went ahead and they did this anyway. And then Al Mohler's fans, like his fans, they weren't happy either, because as far as they were concerned, this was Al Mohler teaming up with he who shall not be named, Doug Wilson, and they weren't happy about that either, because Al Mohler is, you know, supposedly this winsome, you know, sort of, this is the way a conservative ought to be, you know, that kind of thing, and Doug Wilson is persona non grata. I mean, he might as well be a leper to a lot of these people, and so. That's why some people, I think, were thinking it was a troll, because it was like, who is this for? Who does this please? Like, are they really expecting people, a ton of people are going to be, whether they like Al Mohler or they like Doug Wilson or both, or they're going to be like, oh, I got to sign up for Canon Plus because they got the Al Mohler content, right? So that's why people thought it was a troll. But I don't think it was a troll. I don't think that's what it was. I think that Canon Press believes in this content. I really think that they do. In fact, that's actually what Doug Wilson said in his blog post. If you go to this was kind of a quick blog post he posted after Al Mohler had responded to it and all of that. And he says this. He says, Al's stuff back then was really good, and we stand behind it. Unlike Al, apparently. So Doug at least knows, and I don't know how involved Doug is with what Canon Press is all about. I mean, obviously he's somewhat involved, but a lot of people think he's like running the show. I don't really think that's how it is, but at least Doug Wilson knows that, yeah, Al's fallen off, but he's like, this content is really good. He stands behind it, that he believes in this content. And I really think that that's what Canon Press was doing. They thought that people would be edified by this content. Now, I've not seen the content, but I'll tell you what, after this whole debacle, I'm going to be listening to this content for sure. As soon as I have a spare moment, I'm going to be doing it. So in any case, I think they really do believe in this content. But before I do, I want to get into Al Mohler's response to this, because Al is, like I said, he's a consummate politician, and he does whatever he feels is going to make him look the best. And I think that's one of the keys here. You know, Al Mohler is the consummate sort of I've got to work on my image, right? He needs to make sure that his fans and stuff like that feel like his image is squeaky clean. And I think that, to be perfectly honest with you, because he's such a politician in these ways, he's not trustworthy. Because I think Al Mohler in many ways is double-minded. Because he's trying to serve two masters. He's trying to serve God, but he's also trying to serve the public because he wants to be thought of as someone that he wants to be well thought of by people, and I think he ends up turning himself into pretzel, trying to please a lot of people. And of course, this is it all depends on the time you catch Al, because recently he's like, well, you got to vote for pro-life candidates, and he knew that was going to make all these pro-choicers upset. But you see, that's the thing about Al. It's like, this is the moment for that, right? That's got so much energy behind it. That's got so much momentum behind it that I feel like this is how I feel. I don't know that he's done this, but this is what it looks like on the outside, that Al Mohler's done the calculus, and now he's decided to come out strong for X, Y, Z, whatever it is, whatever you want to fill the blanks with. He comes out strong against reparative therapy. Now he's for it. And it's like, or all that stuff, a sexual orientation, whatever it is. Yeah, that's what it was. It was sexual orientation. And it's like, you can't really trust him because it just seems like it almost seems like he's taking an opinion poll and he's, which way's the wind blowing, and that's how I'm going to end. And it's not like he doesn't often change his beliefs whole cloth, but it's really a matter most of the time. Sometimes he does, but really it's a matter of emphasis. And so Al Mohler is really not a trustworthy person. And so here's what happens. So Al Mohler finds out that Canon Press is promoting his content on their platform, and here's what he says. He says, evidently, a media platform has announced the release of some of my material. No communication with me or my staff. No permission from me. Material is taken from my address to Evangelical Theological Society. Take an aspirin. I'm not moving to Russia now or ever. Niet. And so, by the way, that Russia thing's a joke because Doug Wilson lives in Moscow, Idaho. And so that's kind of a joke. But he wrote this tweet in such a way that it made it appear like Doug and his crew in Canon Press had done something nefarious, maybe something unethical. That's how pretty much everybody read this tweet. If you go into the responses, into the comments, you see tons of people now making accusations and assuming that Canon Press did not have the proper authority, the proper permissions to do this, and they did something kind of underhanded, and maybe even legal action is coming. That's how everybody took this tweet. And I think that was, make no mistake, Al Mohler carefully crafted this tweet. This was a tweet that someone in PR would write. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to make a clear message. Look, I do not support Doug Wilson. I do not get his back. I don't even want to be associated with him. And he said all of that without actually really even saying it. He said, I'm not moving to Russia now or ever. Niet. That's basically saying Doug Wilson, he can go to hell. That's what he said in a kind of a joking way, and it's supposed to be a joke, I think, and an indirect way because he's an effeminate. He's an effeminate. He doesn't actually say what he means. Listen, we understand, any men who deal with their wives or maybe even their daughters. I don't know. I've never had a daughter. Needs to understand that women talk in a roundabout way a lot of the time, and you need to get over that because it's frustrating for a man sometimes to not get the direct 411 kind of thing, but that's just how it is. That's how women speak, and that's how effeminate men speak as well. They don't get to the point. They don't talk directly. They don't tell you what's what. They talk in this weird roundabout way where they've got this kind of plausible deniability because. The reason why I say this was written by a PR person or even a lawyer might have written this is because it's just so weaselly. Al Mohler is not a trustworthy person because he doesn't actually say they didn't have proper permission. he doesn't actually say that they acquired it in a nefarious way. He doesn't actually say that they stole it from him, that they did something underhanded or plagiarized or it was sneaky. He doesn't say any of that actually, but that is definitely the impression you're left with when you read this tweet. What he actually only said was, they didn't talk to me. They didn't talk to anyone on my staff. They didn't have my permission. But they didn't need your permission, Al, apparently. They didn't need to talk to you or your staff about this. That's what it seems like. Because Doug Wilson in his blog post says, look, I assure everyone this is not an ethics issue. Everything published on Canon Plus app was acquired fair and square, on the up and up, all legal-like. And if you look carefully at Al Mohler's disingenuous, just quite frankly, this is an evil tweet. Because he's essentially letting an impression stand about Doug Wilson and the staff of Canon Plus or Canon Press rather. He's letting this impression stand that they've done evil, they've done wrong, and he's actually fueling that belief by writing this tweet in the way he did. They didn't have your permission, Al. Apparently, they didn't need it. They didn't talk to you. Apparently, they didn't have to. They didn't talk to your staff. And they didn't have to do that either. But the people that they did have to talk to, they did talk to, apparently. And so Al Mohler here is putting as much distance as humanly possible between him and a fellow believer because he knows he's taken the weather. He knows that to be associated with Doug Wilson in the eyes of the respectable evangelicals that sit in the pews that pay for your stupid books and pay for your ridiculous garbage articles and talks and videos and sermons and all of that garbage, they pay you for it. And they pay you quite well. They pay you to educate their children, and they pay you quite well. All of those don't want to see you have anything to do with Doug Wilson. So what are you going to do? Not only are you going to distance yourself as much as humanly possible from him, but you're also going to lie about them by omission. And again, he wrote this in such a sneaky way because all Al's got to do is say, look, I didn't say they didn't have proper permission. I just said they didn't speak to me. And he's letting this out there, and everyone took it the same way I did, that they did something underhanded. And when I saw this for the first time, I thought, there's no way that Canon was this sloppy, right? Because I don't think Canon is nefarious, right? So I don't have that automatic, bias against them, right? So I thought, the way I thought, it was like, Canon Plus could not have been this sloppy to just take something and sell it without having permission. That's how I took it. And that's how, look at the comments. This is how everybody took this tweet, Al. This is so messed up, dude. I had a low opinion of you, Al Mohler, before all this. I have an even lower opinion now. So you just so not only do you distance yourself from a fellow believer as if he's a pagan, as if he's got leprosy, right? But then you lie about them, making everyone think that they've done something that they shouldn't have done. But you lie about it in the sneakiest possible way that gives you slippery snake, the opportunity to say, "Well, I didn't really say that." This is the tweet that only a consummate professional politician can write. Al Mohler is not to be trusted, in my opinion. And it's tweets like this. And by the way, this is not an isolated incident. He writes tweets like this all the time. It would not surprise me in the least if to find out that someone else was writing these tweets. In other words, like a lawyer or a PR person. That would not surprise me in the least. Or if he's actually writing them, that they get cleared by a lawyer or a PR rep or something like that. I don't know that to be true, but if I found that out, that wouldn't surprise me at all. At all. And so what I want to do is like Al Mohler knows to be associated with Doug is the kiss of death, and so he writes this ridiculous tweet, just dragging his brother's good name through the mud, dragging people that, and this is the thing, it's not just Doug. It's like, I know some of the guys that work for Canon Press, and they're good people, and you drug their names through the mud as well because they're the ones, presumably, Doug Wilson's probably not getting, the licensing in order. He's probably not spending his time doing that, but the good people at Canon Press are, and you drug their names through the mud as if they're some kind of thieves, as if they're some kind of villains, and you didn't care one iota because you knew that it would make you look good to make them look bad, and you went ahead and you took that opportunity. You're a snake, dude. You're a snake. And I want to contrast that today. With the other side of this debate, right? The other side of this. Canon Press and the people of Moscow. Gabe Wrench here, he's defending the decision, and some people were going back and forth with Gabe about, his defense of it. And, my opinions on that defense were, I get what he's saying, but again, I don't think it was a smart idea, even knowing all that Gabe was talking about. But I want to compare this because Al Mohler has this squeaky clean reputation, right, amongst regular pew sitting people, and Doug Wilson's reputation is dragged through the mud all the time, and so a lot of people have this idea of Doug Wilson in Moscow and the CREC that it's like they're villains. They're villains. In fact, I engaged with someone on Twitter the other day that said, I really like the content coming out of Moscow, but I just hear so often that they're a cult, and I responded to them. I was like, if it's a cult, it's the worst cult ever. Like, I could get on Fight, Laugh, Feast, and I'm proving it right now. I can get on Fight, Laugh, Feast network tomorrow and say critical things about Doug, which I just did, critical things about Canon, which I just did, because I think that they're making a mistake by promoting Al. And nobody says anything to me, right? Nobody says a single word. Hey, you can't criticize Doug. That's not how cults work, obviously. People leave the church and they don't get slandered. That's not how cults work. It's not a cult, obviously, but it's people like Al and R. Scott Clark. They want to just sow discord. I'm getting so much value of this, but I hear it's a cult from these. I'm going to be nice. So anyway, people are heaping slander upon slander upon slander about everyone associated with Moscow, Idaho, including the pagans, by the way. They jump in on this too, and they smell blood in the water because they know that not too many people are going to get Doug Wilson's back if you go ahead and slander them in the media, right? Not too many people are going to do that, so they'll go for it. And then look on the other side of this coin. I want you to look at the other side. Canon Press, and you've got Gabe here defending their decision and stuff like that, and they're putting Al Mohler's content out. And they don't have PR reps. And if they do, they don't work the same way that Al's do, right? Because when they put Al Mohler's content out, they knew full well. We've got the proof right here. Doug knows. Yeah, Doug, Al's he's woke now. He's got the woke virus. Like, he doesn't even stand behind his old work, apparently. Like, they knew full well that their fans, the people that eat up their content, love it. They'd be scratching their head like, what? That's weird, man. Why are you putting Al Mohler content? But apparently they think this content is so helpful, and they don't have an axe to grind with Al Mohler. They don't have any bias that like anything Al's touched is trash, right? They don't have that. And so they knew they're going to take heat from their own people that buy their app and buy their books and do this stuff. The same situation, right? On the one hand, we've got Al Mohler. He knows he's going to take heat from people who pay his bills. And so he writes and crafts this sneaky, slimy little tweet to make himself look good because he's trying to control his image because that's the most important thing to Al Mohler, his image. And then we have Doug and Canon who know the same thing. They're people who pay their salaries, the people who buy their books, the people who buy their apps and support them and share their content and stuff like that. They're not going to be happy with this. They're not naive, guys. They knew we don't like Al Mohler. They knew it. But they did it anyway. And then when they take the heat, Doug writes a little blog post here, and he says, look, Al's content is super helpful. At least it used to be. And they don't treat him like he's got leprosy. They don't treat him like a tax collector. They don't treat him like he's persona non grata. In fact, if Al Mohler was interested in having a conversation or a debate, they would answer the phone. Al wouldn't. Brothers, That's an example to emulate, in my opinion. That's an example to emulate. What Canon and the people of Moscow, Idaho have done. I'm not saying you need to platform Al Mohler. I wouldn't do it. I think that was a mistake. I don't know how many times I can be clear about that. It's a mistake. People are still going to think I'm defending it, right? Whatever. But there's no question in my mind that if the media came for Al, in an inappropriate way, right? If the media came for Al, or the media came for one of these big Eva pastors, and they went for him, right? There's no question in my mind that Moscow would have Al's back, because that's my brother, man. I might not like what you're doing, I might not like what you're up to, but I'm not gonna let the pagans slander your name and drag you through the mud and do this and do that. That's an example to emulate. Don't be like Al. Be like the people of Moscow, right? Because nothing could convince me, unless I saw it with my own eyes, that if the media came after Doug, that Al would even lift one pinky to help him out. He would never have his back. Brothers, that's not what you want to be as a Christian. There are a lot of people. I said this all the time. In fact, I said this in one of my private groups that I talk to people about, and we were talking about, someone was saying, someone was asking, well, let me not say the name, because that's, anyway. Someone was asking about a certain individual and who's against wokeness and stuff like that, but a lot of people don't really trust him. And the way I said it was like, look, and some people were arguing with me because they think that I'm naive for liking him and all that. And the way I said it was like, look, like I know full well that this guy would not lift one finger to help me out. No way. He wouldn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like he would. He wouldn't get my back in 2 seconds. No, I'm sorry, in a million years. But I'd get his back. Man. There are a lot of people out there like that, and I message them too. Like there are some guys that I think would probably not want me to even mention their names positively because they think that's going to somehow sully their reputation. There's a lot of guys that I've told privately, like, look, guys, I got your back. If you ever need anything, the woke mob comes for you. I know you don't want to be associated with me. I know you don't want my name, your name spoken on my lips because that somehow dirties you. That's okay, man. You keep fighting the good fight, and if the woke mob comes for you, I will get your back. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but that comes, honestly, that attitude, that comes from the doctrine that I've seen in the CREC. Not just Doug Wilson, but Doug is a big name in that whole area. But every CREC pastor, man, the brother that led the church in Brooklyn that I was a part of. I met a man and I'm pastor in West Virginia, and we've only met once, but just the conversations that we've had, they all have this. They all have this where it's like, yeah, I know they don't like us, but I still think they're helpful. I still find their stuff helpful. It's like, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to put a fine point on that comparison, like the difference between Al's reaction to this and Canon. Let's just say Doug, because he represents Moscow, his reaction to this, it could not be more stark. And I think that the example being set by Doug and the people in Moscow every day is something worth emulating. Gabe and all these guys, it's something worth emulating. Because if I was on fire, I know there are certain people that would not do a single thing to put me out. And I think you know what I'm talking about. You've heard that phrase before too. But you can't let that affect how you would treat them. Because God has commanded that you love the brethren, right? You love the brethren. And there's markers for who's a brethren and who's not. You don't get to decide really what those markers are. God has decided. And it doesn't mean you have to promote their content. Doesn't mean you have to like what they're saying. Doesn't mean you have to not criticize them. Because that's what a lot of Big Eva people think, where it's like, if you even criticize me, you're not my friend. You're not my friend. I remember Jared C. Wilson said something like that to me at one point, where like, I can't be your friend if I'm criticizing. It's just so insane. It's so insane to say that. But man, as much as some of these guys have like tried to hurt me, I'm duty required. It's not so much that I like them, but I love God, and I'm duty required to treat them a certain way. And I think if you look at this example of what happened here, you'll see who's following God's commands in that way, and who's not. Anyway, I don't know if that's everything I wanted to say about this, but I got on a tangent, and this video's gone long. So God bless you. If you're interested, stay tuned, because right after the video fishing that I filmed earlier, I did end up catching the biggest fish of the day, probably 1.5 pounds, almost 2 pounds maybe. And so that's exciting. And it did a nice jump, so you'll be able to see a nice fish jump. In any case, I hope you found this podcast helpful. God bless. Don't forget to tune in next week on Thursday for AD on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network.
If I can get one more fish, I'd be done. Two more casts of this craw. Got one. That's the best one of the day, right there. There he is. Best fish of the day. Right here. Got him on the craw.